Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Once again, I'm sorry for the previous live stream with the messed up camera. So here we are finally, and this time I hope that you can actually see everything well and as it's supposed to be. Do let me know if that is not the case, please. Alright, so on this one we are actually using the Boeing business jet for the very first time. So, as said, on this one we're using the Boeing business jet for the very first time, and it's also my first group flight. The reason I went for the BBJ on this one is because it gives me the opportunity to fly pretty much any route I want without having to try to fall back to some airline operation. And also, just to mention it, this is a lovely little toy. I really love the Boeing business jet, and it's also the first true long hauler that we have available in Microsoft Flight Simulator if we disregard the default aircraft. So, can fly up to 5,500 nautical miles roundabout, and today I hope we won't need quite that much. We're looking at about an hour and 20 flight time. Also, the BBJ got quite a couple of special features that are applicable only to the BBJ. So, first of all, let's get ourselves some fuel, and later on, when we start loading up our passengers, we can actually use SUVs to bring them to the aircraft. So, that is pretty cool. Alright. So, then, we are flying today from Palma de Mallorca to Palermo on a VATSIM event, and as some of you have said earlier on already, it looks like we actually have quite some traffic going today. So, air traffic control has already started implementing flow measures, so let's quickly hit them up and see how long those are actually going to be. But before we can do that, of course we have to start powering up our aircraft. So, no ground power available today. So it is actually going to be all on the APU. At least it should, if the power would come on. Nah, we'll just request ground power unit. Don't know what it's doing right now. Interesting, the battery actually doesn't seem to work. Did I break anything? Again? Wouldn't be surprised if I did. But we should have ground power now, and we don't. Okay. Time for a reload of the panel state. So, cold and dark GPU. That's the one I've always been using. I might have confused my aircraft a little bit because I had to reposition from the stand next to me to the stand over here. Yeah, now it's working. Yeah, I probably confused it because I had to go into slew mode, and I was on the stand over there and slewed to the stand over here because there was somebody else parking on the stand already. So, you know. And Unique Gamer, this is the scenery from Just Flight. Right, so for those of you who are not familiar with the BBJ, we have a couple of specialties in the standby instruments or in the auxiliary fuel tanks that we have in this aircraft. So I'm just going to reset this to the default values then. This is basically the kind of preparation I usually do before I even start the stream, so now you guys get to see it all. So that is pretty much it then. So, let's go ahead then. The weather at our destination is pretty much good. CAF okay, just some light winds. Probably gonna be runway 25. And since they are already using slots, let's add a little bit of fuel. My flight is planned at 5,500 kilos. Let's just go at 6,000 kilos. That should give us ample fuel to make sure that we won't have to divert to a destination. Sorry, to an alternate. So we want 6,000 kilos of fuel in here, please. And you guys can start fueling straight away. By the way, today I've configured my airplane to actually represent pretty much the most modern version of the 737 that would be available. So we have automatic engine start switches, we have the new engine start levers, we have the head-up display installed, so this is actually going to be a fun thing to fly today. Alright, so slightly different from what we usually do. I'm going to contact air traffic control straight away to see what kind of slot we're going to get.
Here is 9 Lima Papa Foxtrot correct. Here cleared Dusseldorf, Meadows 3 Alpha departure, runway 24 right, climb initially 5000, squawk 4437.
Clear Dusseldorf Meadows 3 Alpha departure, climbing 5000 and squawk 4437, Euring 9 Lima Papa.
9 Lima Papa, read back correct.
Palma delivery, Buenos Tardes, November 839 Bravo Alpha, information Foxtrot, request clearance to Palermo.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, Palma, muy buenas, cleared Palermo, flight plan route, departure Papa Tango Charlie 2 Alpha, runway 24 right, climb initially 5000, squawk 4445.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, clear to Palermo, flight plan route, Papa Tango Charlie 2 Alpha departure, runway 24 right, climb 5000 feet, squawk 4445.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, read back correct.
And November 839 Bravo Alpha, any slot?
39 Bravo Alpha, now it looks 1648, but I'll call you back.
48, roger. We'll need about 15 minutes at least anyway.
Perfect. Airline 1516, Palma.
Alright, so slots are about half an hour late right now, so if you guys are flying along, I would very much recommend you that you are going to secure yourself a slot already. However, be aware that if you get one, you'll have to be able to catch it. So if you want to be on the safe side, put that slot in the future and then see what air traffic control is going to do with it.
Palma delivery, Buenos Aires, Itaro 3.
Alright then, nav data out of date. That's because it shares the nav data with the 600 and I'm doing LNAV testing there. So I need to stick to the default data at the moment.
Runway 24 right, climb initially 5000 feet, squawk 6217.
Clear to destination Palermo via Papa Tango Charlie 2 Alpha, from runway 24 right, initially 5000, squawk 6217, Itaro 354.
So I'm not 100% sure which arrival to expect. I'll just go for the VOR runway 07 right now. Probably going to be something different, but we'll get there eventually.
Request Alpha 3 Beta, we have Foxtrot.
In the meantime, let's start setting our aircraft up. Usual stuff in the FMC, so I won't even go into too much detail. You guys are familiar with that by now if you're a frequent viewer of my channel. It doesn't like the zero fuel weight, then let's give it 44. That's probably the minimum over here. And we're looking at a southbound flight, so level 400.
6204, Valencia 88, Quebec, India.
Valencia 88, Quebec, India, read back correct.
Mallorca delivery, Buenatarra, Ryanair 97 Lima, Romeo, stand number 98, with slot plans to Palermo with Foxtrot, right upon.
Ryanair 97 Lima, Romeo, muy buenas. You are cleared Palermo flight plan route, Papa Tango Charlie 2 Alpha departure, 24 right, initially claim 5000, squawk 4442.
Clear to Palermo via Papa Tango Charlie 2 Alpha departure, runway 24 right, initially altitude 4000 feet, squawk 3442 for Ryanair 97.
Palermo is located at sea level, so we can just keep the 0.
Muy buenas, Romeo Zulu Oscar 125 stand 50.
Initial climb 5000, ATC cleared us already, so we can put that straight in. And the runway heading is 239.
Palermo, Morse
238 actually.
Runway 24 right, climb initially 5,000 feet, squawk 4452.
Clear to Palermo, initially 5,000 via Morse 3 Alpha departure, runway 24 right.
Right, near RMP07 in use at the moment, perfect. And Slavik, I'm gonna show you the cabin when we are waiting for a slot, okay? But first I want to get ready over here to make sure that we actually get flying.
What is the slot delay for us?
354, 164, correction 1651 Zulu.
1650, Itaro 354.
Iberia 3269 Palma.
Go ahead.
Fort push contact ground 121.7.
121.7 for Iberia 3269.
Right, so,
Number 81 with you. Do you say time slot for me 21 or 31?
29er, 1629er.
Okay, thank you, 29er.
Delivery, good evening, Europe 73 Alpha Information Foxtrot from board requesting clearance to Palermo 5.
Europa 73 Alpha, muy buenas. Palma cleared to Palermo, Papa Tango Charlie to Alpha departure, runway 24 right, climb initially 5,000, squawk 62.
right, so 30 degrees outside. Let's turn on the APU to get the air conditioning going by the time that our rich guys are actually stepping aboard our aircraft. So, that is pretty much this part. So, let's see where this thing is going to go next. I'll start with the briefing and everything, and then we'll see what's coming next. I have, by the way, sent a private message to the delivery controller to confirm whether the slots they are currently giving are seat slots or teasers. Now, let me explain the difference for you guys. A CTOT means calculated takeoff time. So you have a time frame of -5 to +10 minutes of a CTOT to actually get airborne. However, a TSAT is a target startup approval time, which means that at that time you can expect your startup and pushback clearance. So we'll have to confirm with ATC here whether the times they're giving are CTOTs or TSATs. Basically, if it's a CTOT, I would calculate the startup approval about 15 minutes prior to the CTOT on an airport like Mallorca.
November 838 Bravo Alpha, read back correct.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, request.
839 Bravo Alpha, go.
839 Bravo Alpha, can you confirm if the slots you're giving are takeoff time or startup approval time?
Startup approval.
Roger, thank you. Okay, so it's startup approval time. That makes it a little bit easier since we don't have to do the taxi time calculation and everything.
Number 81 Palma.
Yep, go ahead.
So, APU is available. Let's give it 2 minutes before we can put the air conditioning on, and then we can also start our boarding of the passengers. Information Foxtrot, QNH 1019er, the minimum flap retraction altitude at Palma is 1,000 feet above the field, so we'll put that at 1,020-ish.
88 Quebec India, contact ground 121.7, Joe.
Ground 121.7, Valencia 88 Quebec India.
And we're going to get the exact details as soon as our takeoff calculations are done. Alright, let's start off with a briefing then. Threats for this departure. Well, it's very crowded airspace and it's Spain. So, I'll repeat myself again. This is absolutely nothing against the Spanish controllers on VATSIM, but this is something we take into account when we're in Spain in real life. Because in real life, things can sometimes get a little bit messy in Spain, because of the English capabilities of the controllers and because half the traffic is talking English and the other half of the traffic is talking Spanish. So that's why situational awareness is a bit of a thing in Palma de Mallorca and in Spain overall in real life, and that's why I'm also treating it as a bit of a threat for our departure. So this basically means that we'll carefully review the clearances they give us, and if there is any doubt, then we are going to question whether it actually makes sense or not, and in any doubt we'll just stop the aircraft and ask if we're on the ground, or if we're in the air, then we'll make sure that we confirm with air traffic control straight away. I would say that's the main threat we have for this departure. So let's go for our route check then. We're going from Lima Echo Papa Alpha to Lima India Charlie Juliet, and we are the November 839 Bravo Alpha. The routing itself is from Porte Colom, Upper Mike, yeah, there we go already. So, Porte Colom, Upper Mike 871 Xatos, direct Ibrep, direct Adami, Mike 871 Kapil, and that takes us all the way to Exosi.
You can contact.
So, I'm going to fix this discontinuity real quick here.
121.9 for the push, thank you so much. Amber 81.
Oh yeah, that looks interesting. Let's see, we go to Exosi and then from there... Interesting that we didn't have the Exosi transition. Ah, I put the wrong arrival in. See, that's why we're doing it. And here we are with an Exosi transition. And now it should look like a proper routing as well. Oh boy, it's definitely time for the new LNAV module. Yep, this looks like the correct routing for the RMP approach from A07. Okay, ground distance is 555, and from the flight plan we are supposed to have 557. 3.4 tons remaining, versus 2.2 required, that's an hour of extra flight time. Time UTC 1626, altimeter 1019, reading for 81020, flight directors on Mans Master, standby instrument set. Left C takeoff, runway 2 for right, flaps 5, noise abatement departure procedure number 2, with a buck-up at 1,500 feet. Specially OSIT, straight at 25 miles, and that's over the water, so we can hold at an altitude of 3,000 feet. Above 80 knots, I will abort the takeoff for any malfunction. Up to 80 knots, of course, I will abort for any malfunction. Above 80 knots, only for fire or fire warning, engine failure, predictive wind shear warning, aircraft unable or unsafe to fly. If I call stop, I will simultaneously close the thrust levers and disengage the auto throttle, apply maximum manual braking, verify operation of the RTO auto brakes. I'll manually raise the speed brake lever and apply maximum reverse thrust, and when the aircraft comes to stop, I will set the park and brake. Now the FO continues. If you call stop, I will note the brakes on speed, call speed brakes up or speed brakes not up, and thrust reverse normal or up normal indication. I'll call 100 knots, 80 knots, 60 knots, and the runway distance remaining. Verify your actions, call in emissions, I call auto brake, disarm, and select flaps 40 when the parking brake has been set, and advise ATC of the reject. We then identify the failure and carry out any drills as appropriate, if we decide to evacuate. November 839 Bravo Alpha, 5 minutes.
Correction, November 839 Bravo Alpha 1648 Zulu will try to navigate shorter.
1648 Zulu, November 839 Bravo Alpha, perfect. Okay, 1648, so in 20 minutes. Let's write that down. Right, and we can put our air conditioning on. That's probably the most important thing of all right now. So where have we been interrupted? Yeah, if the call before we want to keep going, no actions below 400 feet except to cancel any warnings, raise the landing gear with a positive rate of climb. At 400 feet, verify heading select and carry out memory items. At the MFRA, we are going to buck up and retract the flaps and schedule. Flap no light, select level change, max continuous thrust, engage the automatics. Non-normal checklist, normal checklist, then we'll do a PIOC, NITS and PA, and then we're going to decide on the further course of action. For the taxi, we are going to start our engines on stand, then we taxi straight out, left turn. There is a caution in the airfield briefing over here not to start the left turn until we're exactly on the line. And then it's going to be left all the way, and we'll probably taxi via gate Foxtrot, that's the one over there, to the left, to the right, and then we can take intersection November 1 figures, which is over here. For our departure then, we have the Portocolom to Alpha departure. That is, on a chart, 10-3 Delta effective 18th of June, transition altitude 6000 versus 6001, speed max 250 at or below flight level 100, that is in. And then, initial climb clearance, maintain 5000, and that is cleared by ATC already. For the routing, it's actually a fairly easy departure. We go straight ahead on 236, radial outbound from Palma San Juan until 7 DME. Then we do a left-hand turn to a 209 heading until 11 DME. So in here, 236 to 7, 209 to 11, and then left 136 inbound to Pitux and then Chural. Now Pitux is slightly faster in here. Let's change that. We'll give it a 220 knot restriction and 5,000 feet in here. Then on 136 to 5,000 and then left 059 inbound to Portocolom, which is what we have in here. And Portocolom above flight level 100. Any further questions?
Boarding 584 Palma.
Okay, no questions. That's very good. Then let's actually go ahead and start our boarding.
Boarding 584, there has been slightly lower times now. Yours is 35. You can start contacting ground now 121.7.
So here come our passengers. Gotta love those SUVs. But come on guys, don't park on the road please. No, that looks alright. Good, so we start our boarding. Just 6 guests that we are bringing along today.
Bravo Alpha, new time 1641.
1641, 839 Bravo Alpha.
November 838, Bravo Alpha, 1647.
That's good, the slot is coming forward already. So, passengers are on board. SUVs can go again. Alright, let's go ahead and do our performance then. We have 44.3. That's 800 more than in the operational flight plan, but we took sufficient extra fuel. So that is quite right.
Can you confirm the slot for Itaro 354?
Itaro 354, 1644 Zulu now.
1644 Zulu, Itaro 354.
Right, so let's go for the OPT then. We'll still have only the 800 profile in here, but they are working on the 700 as we speak. So we're going from Palma de Mallorca, runway 24 right, at intersection November 1. It's a dry runway. The latest conservative wind is 190 at 10 knots, temperature 29 and 1019 on the QNH. So max takeoff weight is possible, and we're actually going at 50400. Not a lot of weight, 22k, 61 degrees. So we actually don't have 22k in this aircraft, so let's limit the performance tool to 24 then. Rating 24, calculate. Then it's 24k, 61 degrees. Giving me 87.0 versus 87.2. It's still 30 in the sim, but that's fine. Okay. Actually fairly lightweight. Let's see if we can do flap 1 takeoff. It's still 24.61 and then 128, 28.33.
165.
Okay, those speeds are of course a little bit off since we are still sitting in BBJ here, which is based on the 700 model.
1659er 1659.
And the MFRA is 1027. Alright, so that's pretty much this. Then let's start with the checklist. Surfaces chocks, check. Maintenance status, check. Battery on. Electric hydraulic pumps on. Landing gear lever down. Ship's library checked. Iris mode selectors, nav, gear pins, 1, 2, 3 removed. Light test. Told you on my last stream already that I'm forgetting about it every time in simulator here. But that is all the bulbs working. And believe it or not, I've come across one occasion so far where it's actually been worth it doing the light test. That was during the initial beta phase, where I believe the freighter for some reason didn't have some light bulbs corrected. Alright, so light test checked. Oxygen test 100%. Yaw damper on. Nav transfer display switches, normal auto. Fuel, we need 5.5, we have 6 with 4 pumps on. So, cabin utility IV galley power on, emergency exit lights armed, fasten belts on, window heat on, aircon press, PAX auto, bleeds on, set, press mode selector, auto. Instruments are cross-checked, auto brakes RTO, hydraulics, normal, and the speed brake. Down detent, parking brake, set, stop from cutout switches, normal, wheel fire warning, checked, radius, radar and transponder, set and standby, rudder and aileron trims, 3 and 0, takeoff briefing, discussed, and holding at the PA. So, I would say we are flying a BBJ, so let's go ahead there and actually greet our passengers in person, shall we? And this is, by the way, what the interior of the plane looks like. Really gotta love it. And I tend to say that while the passenger cabin of the 700 still needs a little bit of work from PMDG, this one is actually pretty good. Small business class at the end here, so for example, if you had a statesman traveling and doing his business over here, then you could have some press sitting in the back of the plane. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard our Boeing business jet on our flight from Mallorca to Palermo. I'm Emmanuel, I'm going to be your captain today, and with me in the flight deck are a lot of very fine folks flying this flight along on our group flight. Expected flight time is about 1 hour and 20 minutes. We expect to start our engines in just a few minutes time, so we should be on our way momentarily. I would like to thank you for your attention, wish you a very nice flight. If there is anything we can do for you to make your flight more enjoyable, don't hesitate to ask any of our cabin crew. Thank you for your attention and have a nice flight. November 839 Bravo Alpha, go ahead.
Ground 121.9, have your flight.
121.9, November 839 Bravo Alpha, thank you. Alright, we'll call the ground controller momentarily. Let's, in the meantime, oh yeah, still got the startup time in here, that's why it doesn't work. And the APU is online. Galley power can go as well, chocks be removed. Trim 4.7, forgot to set that earlier. Alright, so a few questions there in the comments about how to handle and move around in the cabin. Basically, I'm using the drone camera for that, and you can assign keys to move the drone with the, I believe it's called translate view function or something like that. Just have a look in your simulator settings, and in there you are going to find some the exact assignments for the drone. Alright, so then let's go ahead and complete our checklist. FMC CDU set and one IIS box. We have automatic, reduced 24K, speeds 202126, 202126 set. Step trim 4.7 units. Yeah, that is almost set. Performance weight and balance, sight and send, phones off, EFB, airplane mode stowed, flight of windows and cockpit door, locked, doors closed, and the passengers are almost seated. That is good enough for me. Okay. Passenger seated before start checklist complete. Palma ground, Buenos Aires, November 839 Bravo Alpha, stand 106, request startup. What's going to happen?
November 9 Bravo Alpha, please stay position.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, stand 108.
Okay. November 38 Bravo Alpha, startup approved.
November 38 Bravo Alpha, startup approved. Okay, below the line.
On the ground, crash side 31, stand 26.
Air compacts off, anti-collision light on, park and brake set, transponder alt off, before start checklist complete. Then let's start engine number 2.
Easy 1512, that's in taxi.
And 2.
Standby, please. Alpine 1516, after Foxtrot, continue via link and north to holding point away to forward.
Just use taxi, E1512.
Well in 584, contact over 118 decimal.
And 2, all press N1.
Tom Jet 3 Echo Whiskey, contact over 118 decimal 3. 118, Under 81, after Foxtrot, continue following the traffic ahead and continue via link and north to holding point away to forward.
Continuing following the traffic by Foxtrot 2 link holding point number 1, number 81.
Thank you, and same for you, Air France 16 Charlie Mike.
Start a cutout, monitor 2, and isolating a pack, starting 1.
Holding point runway 2 forward.
Link and north, holding point runway 2 forward, following the traffic, response 16 Charlie Mike.
Alpine 1516, contact over 118 decimal 3.
Contact tower 118.
And 2, all press N1.
Under 81, contact over 118 decimal 3.
118.3 for tower, thank you so much, good job.
Thank you, and Air France 16 Charlie Mike, the same for you. Please contact over 118 decimal 3, have a nice flight.
118 decimal 3, response 16 Charlie Mike, thank you, bye bye. On the ground, crash 31, request pushing start.
Croatia 831, push start, approve.
Start a cutout, monitor engine number 1. And engine number 1 is stable.
Crash 81.
America ground, we went as running to Oscar 125, ready to taxi.
And the flight control track. It's full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, and the rudder. Full left, full right, neutral. Before taxi checklist. Generators on, APU off, start switches continuous, probe heat on, NEIs off, air conditioning, PAX auto, bleeds on, isolation valve auto, flaps. That is 1 required, 1 selected, and green light. Step trim 4.7 required set. Start Libus idle detent, flight controls checked, recall checked, before taxi checklist complete. And let's quickly get the temperatures up again. 22 degrees is more than cool enough.
Ground 121.7, instruct me to contact you on 121.9.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, request taxi. November 839 Bravo Foxtrot, left on Lima Echo, hold short, gate Foxtrot. Okay, gate Foxtrot is at the end before we leave the apron. Then, brakes released, config. Yeah, clear left and clear right. So that's what I meant earlier on, we really have to go straight ahead here, all the way to the line. And only then, when we reach it, we can start our left turn. And for a reason that I don't know, my nose wheel steering is not as effective as it's supposed to be. Now what did I break again? I better don't even think about it. Is that a Turkish Airlines A350 over there? Looks like a nice plane. Yeah, it is. I didn't know Turkish had the A350s. I do see their 777s from time to time here in Germany, but never saw an A350 of them yet. Right, let's see. We have Croatia up there. A39 Bravo Alpha, we have the traffic and set, we're holding behind him.
Palma ground, Croatia 31, ready to taxi. Ready to taxi, Croatia 31. Via Patron link.
I have my nose wheel steering assigned to the tiller, so November 839 Bravo Alpha will follow the Croatia to the holding point runway 24 right. And he's moving. Right, so straight ahead out of the apron, left, right. And with the traffic in front of us, there's probably no sense asking for the intersection takeoff, as we're not gonna get it anyway. Well, unless, real life story here, I've had a friend of mine who is flying for a different airline, but he's been in Mallorca on the same day, and we coincidentally got the very same slot on the way out, so the same minute. And he stood at the holding point for like 10 minutes. We came along in the south. It was runway 06 right, and we just said, yeah, ready for departure, able Sierra 3 due to slot. And we had, I don't know if ATC just didn't check or anything, but they just gave us lineup and takeoff immediately while there were like 6 aircraft waiting in front of us at the holding point. And it didn't take very long until after my friend landed till I got a quick WhatsApp message here saying, "You don't do that again to me." That was lovely. But if ATC gives it to me, even though I have to admit that it wasn't entirely fair to say, yeah, ready. due to slot, because our slot would have been like 15 minutes in the future.
Runway 8.3.
Oh, why is he stopping now?
Again for 8 Bravata.
So I don't quite know why the Croatia is stopping there right now, but he'll have a reason. In the meantime, let's do the before takeoff checklist to the line. Config, checked, flaps, 1, green light, step trim, 4.7, set. Takeoff briefing, it's going to be a left seat takeoff on runway 2 for right, flaps 1, NADP 2 with a backup at 1500. Contact departure when advised by the tower. The SID is straight ahead to join radial 236. Outbound. November 839 Bravo Alpha A firm. We are following the Croatia. November 839 Bravo Alpha, contact tower 118.3, and the other station is an 838 Bravo Alpha as far as I have heard. Yeah, sometimes the controller client that the ATCs are using here makes it pretty hard to distinguish an 8 from a 9. Or from the Bravo, for that matter of fact. Anyway. Palma Tower, Buenos Aires, November 839 Bravo Alpha, ready for departure. Hotel 1. Okay, so let's do the departure briefing again. Left seat takeoff, 2 for right, flap 1, NADP 2, backup 1500. Contact departure when advised by the tower. The SID, Porto Colom 2 Alpha departure. Straight ahead, radial 236 outbound Palma San Juan until 7 DME. Left turn radial, heading 209 until 11 DME. And actually, that would be a good moment to tune that VOR, if you want to use it. That usually makes sense. Okay, then are we doing anything else? Yeah, EOSIT, straight at 25, climb to 3000, and that's basically it. Any questions? So looks like it's gonna take a short while here. Still 4 aircraft ahead, and they're just departing heavy, so that means a bit of additional delay there. We're going to Hotel 1, that's the one straight ahead where all the others are going. Interesting that they're not using Hotel 2. Usually they're lining aircraft up via both taxiways here. And Ufran, yeah, we definitely can use the controller a little. Just read your comment. Gotta love the look of the business jet. I mean, this is a nice toy, isn't it? Let's see if I can keep our aircraft creeping up slowly, so that we don't actually have to stop here, but I don't think we will be able to do that. Man, I feel like I'm flying the max right now. The max is also accelerating when you're in idle thrust. The max is actually accelerating pretty rapidly when you're in idle thrust. So, if you're flying a 737 max and taxiing along, it'll easily go up to 30 knots and probably even faster, so you'll have to break it down every now and then. Ben, no, this is not default scenery, this is the just flight Palma to Mallorca. And if I'm not 100% mistaken, I did put a link to it in the description of the stream below, so if you look there, you should find links to the scenery. Same goes for the arrival scenery in Palermo, which is going to be the jet stream design. Hi Tim. Oops.
for Palma. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Looks like it didn't take over the tiller plus rudder assignment. That of course might explain why I didn't have sufficient nose-wheel steering earlier. I changed that setting in the 700, but might be different in the BBJ.
Lining up, runway to right, position 21.
Rohit, why does the aircraft accelerate with idle thrust? That's basically because idle thrust does not mean zero thrust. In idle it gives you something 15-20% of the maximum thrust, because you have to keep in mind how a jet engine works, and that there is still air being moved through the engine just in order to keep the engine itself running. So that's why, even though it is called idle, you're actually getting quite a little bit of thrust out of the engine. So if you would walk behind an idling engine, it would be more than enough to blow you away. Dilutin. November 89 Bravo Alpha, line up await, runway 2 for right. So, confirm the readback. Line up await, runway 2 for right. So, clear on the right, clear on the left, before takeoff checklist below the line. MCP, set, transponder, TARA, Stop lights on, holding at the landing lights.
Control, goodbye, thank you.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, runway 2 for right, cleared for takeoff. Hi Tim. It's always nice to hear your friends on the network, even though we should not do it on the frequency, but that's done in real life all the time as well, if people recognize each other. Okay, well, saying that, I messed up my lineup. Anyway, stabilized, set takeoff thrust. Takeoff thrust set, indications normal. Checked.
Positive rate of climb.
Gear up. LNAV. Palma, let's move forward. November 839 Bravo Alpha. Bye bye. Okay, and buck up. Flaps up. Palma, Buenos Aires, November 839 Bravo Alpha, 2800, climb at 5000, port column 2 Alpha. Flaps up lights. Vino. November 839 Bravo Alpha, climb flight level 100. Set, 100 checked. And we have flaps up, no lights, set standard. Passing 38, climb 100 after takeoff checklist. First fly the aircraft, there we go. So, air cannon press, 2.6, climbing and set. Altimeters. Standard twice and now 3 times. After takeoff checklist complete, cabin crew is released. Just want to try something we're supposed to fly. Oh yeah, it just updated itself. That's what I wanted to see. If the magenta line would update itself for my position. And it actually did. Alright, so auto throttle disconnect. November 839 Bravo Alpha, climb flight level 140. That's what I get, just reduced my rate of climb, so auto throttle on, set, and flight level 140 checked. Oh boy, those rate of climbs are lovely in the BBJ. And I'm still using reduced thrust here. Let's go speed and event then and up to our final climb speed.
20 Patron control, thank you. Bye-bye.
13235 in November 39 Bravo Alpha, bye bye. Let's put something like 300 knots in for now. One to go. Barcelona, Buenos Aires, November 839 Bravo Alpha, level 135, climbing 140 in Mount Chural. Climb flight level 400, November 839 Bravo Alpha. Yeah, let's get the plane climbing.
Flight level 13140.
And set. 400 checked. And speed window is closed. 280 is our climb speed. Let's see what we can get out of this beauty. So we're in full climb thrust now. Sub 1,000 feet a minute. That's not too bad. Unfortunately, only in climb. Anyway, come on to A. Let's get the autopilot to fly the plane. Then we can actually do the 10 checks. Fuel is balanced with 4 pumps. The lights are going off. APU is off. Air cannon pressed. That's by now 6.0 climb set. Fast modes auto. Recall check 21.5. Monitoring, and that's the 10 checks complete. Guys, I don't know if any of you is listening right now, but be so kind not to talk over one another, okay? Lovely view of the island. So I'm sure that many of you will have been on holidays in Mallorca already. What is your favorite part? Mine, by the way, is the Bay of Alcudia up over there. Last time I've been in a hotel, must have been here. But I have to say, I've never been that high over Port de Colombe yet. At least not in real life. So due to the NDB, we have doubled station in here. I'm just going to put direct Port de Colombe in there, so that it's going to fly the turn correctly.
What to do it? Thank you very much. I see you soon with a better point.
Was kann der Line ist, das ist schlimmer. Okay. Weil der Duo ist schlimmer, ich weiß, dass er wirklich nichts ist. Der wird bei der State ist, der war nicht so.
0.47 Charlie, also pushing start.
So, Port Cologne, flight level 280. Now that's what I call amazing. That's what I call absolutely amazing. That is what I call absolutely amazing. And now be aware, we used reduced takeoff thrust here on our departure. And we had a reduced 24k. We could have gone 27k. That is easily like 15% more thrust. Okay, and angle of bank 10. I have to say the BBJ is an absolutely amazing aircraft. I mean, I'm probably repeating myself here, but the performance this thing has is just amazing. And I have flown already with a captain who flew for a BBJ operator previously, and they flew on long-haul routes on behalf of Lufthansa in a pure business class configuration across the Atlantic. And whenever these guys requested clearance to Houston, Los Angeles, JFK, whatever, the controllers were always like, confirm you're a Boeing 737? Yes, we are. So that was just, that must have been great. And then a couple of times he told me a story when they have been in the United States, and apparently controllers don't look very much at the aircraft types over in the US. So they just hear heavy or not heavy, and then they know what to do with the aircraft. At least that's what he told me. And then of course he's been coming in as Lufthansa into Houston with low-lying clouds 300 or 400 feet. And there has been a case where he has come out of the clouds. The controllers were expecting to see a 747 or an A380 or something. They saw a 737 coming out there and immediately instructed a go-around. So just imagine that. You're getting go-around because the controller expected to see a 747 and you're coming out of the clouds with your 737 BBJ. Isn't that amazing? It surely must have been a fun report to write after the landing. Basically any go-around below 1,000 feet is considered a safety event, so they had to write a report for that one. And just imagine, it must have been amazing writing that down and then getting that call from the responsible manager, like, what the hell has been going on there?
Hawk 1237, we are squawking 1237. Nordic Terminal request
Alright, so looks like we finally got to tame our pocket rocket here. Just 1,300 feet a minute at level 345. What would an Airbus give you at this altitude? Like half the rate of climb? Just look at this, 13 minutes. I have to say though, I did a test flight in the 600 earlier today, and this is probably all I can actually tell you about that 600 beta, and I reached level 390 in 15 minutes. So The 600 is actually by some guys referred to as the pocket rocket, because it's so short and got that incredible climb performance. And believe it or not, most people think the 600 is such a very old-fashioned aircraft, but there have actually been a couple of 600s that included a heads-up display. For example, the Scandinavian 737-600 that had a head-up display. That is quite cool, isn't it? By the way, as with level 400, another amazing feature here of the BBJ is the cabin pressure. So, if you look at this, it looks like you're actually over-pressurizing the airplane. But you're just about on the limit here, because the BBJ has a feature that limits the cabin altitude to 6,500 feet maximum. And that 6,500 feet is really making a difference, or a big difference, over the standard 8,000 feet in terms of how refreshed you feel after a flight. Many business jets, or many modern business jets, are featuring these lower cabin altitudes in order to improve passenger comfort. And Boeing went on with this and did some flight testing and determined that the BBJ could safely be operated with cabin altitudes of around 6,000 feet. Now, obviously, that puts quite some loads on the airframe, which reduces the overall life cycle of the airframe. But if you keep in mind that the 737 airframe is built for around 60,000 flights over the course of a life of about about 30 years, one to go by the way, then you can imagine that the BBJ is going to fly quite a bit less. And I'm not 100% sure to how many cycles the BBJ is limited. I have the number 15,000 in my head, but I don't know if that is correct or not. So just imagine the loads that are being put on the airframe when the cabin altitude is 2,000 feet lower here. So 6,000 versus the standard round about 8,000. But it's amazing to see that Boeing could actually do this. It just shows, by the way, how much margin there is in the 737's design. Right, reaching cruise level here. Gonna answer a couple of your questions in a moment. Just quickly want to run a little bit of paperwork here. Top of climb 16 minutes versus 18, but we had to reduce our rate of climb quite a bit due to the other traffic as well, so that makes sense. We're supposed to have 4 tons on board. We have 4.4, but we loaded an additional 500, so again the fuel roughly matches. We're supposed to have used 1.5 and we are at 1.6. That matches the slightly increased fuel burn. 1.6 plus 4.4, 6 tons. That's what we've loaded, so no reason to suspect a fuel leak as well. So we're just passing SOTEX, which should be the boundary to the next sector. But if it But if the Croatia has already sent a Unicom, that probably means that there is no controller en route online at the moment, covering the en route airspace. Let's see if there's anybody on the map. No, actually there isn't. That's a pity. That is really a pity. Want to do this late? November 839 Bravo Alpha. Adios. Okay, would have wished for some ATC to be there, but well. Nonetheless, I'll just stay on the frequency, just for the immersion for it, and then since the usage of the guard frequency is not allowed on VATSIM anyway, I'll just put Unicom on the second com so that we can listen along in case happening. Right, so I'll turn ATC down a little bit for you guys so that it's easier to hear my voice. So, then a couple of questions of what you guys are asking there. Glenn, when landing, how do you determine how much reverse thrust to use? Sometimes it is idle thrust and sometimes much more. Okay, basically, if you have a dry runway, then the reverse thrust is not taken into account for the prediction of how much runway you are going to need for your stopping anyway. So that means that in that case, reverse only helps with the brake cooling because it takes some energy off the brakes. And that is basically the main reason for us to determine how much reverse we're going to use. Even on a wet runway with good braking action, you probably don't have to worry about stopping the aircraft at all. So basically, we look at the turnaround time that we've been given by the airline, and then we look at the brake cooling requirements that are calculated by the onboard performance tool. And when we have done that, then we determine if we can use idle reverse, which of course would be the preferred option due to saving of the fuel, or if we need to use the second detent reverse, or probably even maximum reverse, just to make the brakes heat up a little bit less and therefore help with the brake cooling schedule. Then Stefan, after my sim experience here, would I like to have a head-up guidance system in real life on my Airlines 737s? For example, to use the head-up guidance system on landings, it helps to aim for the touchdown point. Well, if I'm totally honest, I don't see them necessary in the kind of operations that my airline does. We're basically flying all over Europe, and the weather conditions in Europe are rarely bad enough that the head-up guidance system is actually worth it. You can fly perfectly fine without it. Of course, it adds to the situational awareness a little bit, but nonetheless, you know, it does not really help you that much with your landings. If you're flying a real aircraft, you're just developing that feeling for where the airplane is aiming. And if you are on approach in the simulator, as well as in the real aircraft by the way, you can rather easily determine where the aircraft is going by just looking. There is one single spot in the windshield that is not moving compared to the windshield. And that's the spot where your aircraft is aiming for. The rest of it is slowly going to move. Then Enzio, they ran out of that margin with a max, so that's referring to the cabin altitude that we talked about earlier on. They threaten to cancel the program if things don't go Boeing's way. They never learn. To be honest, the issue with cancelling the program is one that is not related to any margins or anything. It's related to the master warning system in the 737. The problem there is that they have until the end of the year, until a new law gets into force that demands newly certified aircraft to have an ICAS. And having an ICAS means, like you're used to from the 787 for example, having those warning messages on the ICAS. And the 737 doesn't have that. So if they have to build an ICAS in the 737, they have to rework the complete warning system in the cockpit. So that would basically make the 737 MAX 10 its own type rating, and therefore make it absolutely not viable anymore for the airlines. And that's the problem, how they have to fix that problem, or rather, that's the problem why they have to certify the MAX 10 before the end of the year. And if they don't make it, they basically would have to rework major parts of the cockpit. Nikolai, why is there no voice channels in my Discord servers? That's because I'm still experimenting with it, and I'm not 100% sure how I could do that for now, especially seeing the moderation. You know, if people jump into a voice server and start insulting other people, then either a moderator is there hearing it, or not. And in most cases, there is not always going to be a moderator monitoring what's going on in the voice channels. Then we have a question there from Real Blocks Gaming. Are you colorblind? Can somebody colorblind be a pilot? Somebody who is colorblind can become a general aviation pilot, but not a commercial pilot. In general aviation, there are measures that would allow somebody to get a medical without, while being colorblind. But at least here in Germany, you cannot get medical if you are colorblind, or at least not class 1 medical, which you need for commercial operations. Then Wally Traster is asking, what would cause N2 on both engines to climb to 30% plus when the APU is started? Honestly, I wouldn't know, because the APU starter is electric, so it's not related to the engines at all. So, Jan, can you please explain more how the cost index works? Okay, so, a high cost index gives you a high cruising speed, therefore making the flight time shorter, but increasing fuel usage. And that means that if you have a very high cost for your staff, so if you pay high pilot salaries, high cabin crew salaries, etc., but a low cost for the fuel, so if you can buy the fuel cheap, then you would normally fly a high cost index, because it means you are burning more fuel, which does however not cost as much, while having to pay less salaries to your employees because they are not flying as long. The opposite is the case when you have a low cost index, because then you are paying much for the fuel, but very little for your pilots and cabin crew, so you will preserve fuel, so that you have to spend less money buying fuel, but instead spend more money paying your pilots and cabin crew who are flying the airplane. Nikolai, have I ever had a situation where a passenger was having some problems? Yes. I had one situation where a passenger reacted allergic to some perfumes that were to be sold on board the aircraft, and the passenger fainted. Luckily we had a doctor on board, and that doctor was able to treat the passenger on board, so a diversion was not required. I've had a couple more cases where passengers fainted or where they did not feel well, but I never had to divert for that yet. Then Stefan, I usually fly cost index 50. Is that too high? What would I think? Well, it is very high. So, for example, Lufthansa is operating in the high 20s. Most low-cost carriers are around about 10. But even the high-cost carriers, like Lufthansa, United Airlines, they're usually operating in the region about 30 or 40. But 50 really seems to be very, very high. Then Matthew, do airlines use a standardized cost index for all their flights? That depends by airline. So, for example, there is the famous Ryanair cost index of 6. And they're using that on pretty much all their flights, unless the flight is delayed and runs the danger of violating a curfew, which would require diversion. Then Ryanair would give cost index 100. As far as I know, all other German airlines are actually using a fixed cost index as well, but that can be redetermined every now and then. Ronald, do you see a change in cost index with the currently rising fuel prices, or isn't it that dynamic? Well, at least in my airline, we are still using the same cost index that we had before, but we are operating one of the lower cost indexes, so you don't have to... basically, there is not a lot that you could gain by reducing the cost index much further. Slavek, is it true that some pilots fly cost index 0 because the airline pays for the hours? Well, as far as I know, pretty much all Turkish operators are paying by the actual block hours. So we often see Turkish airlines taxiing at 5 knots because they are being paid by the actual minute. And you can easily gain 5 extra minutes if you just go 5 knots versus 30 knots, even on small airports. However, flying at cost index 0, well, I know of a few cases where pilots flew a slower airspeed because they just needed an additional 2 or 3 minutes of delay in order not to be legal to do their duty on the next day anymore, which then meant they had to get a later duty. But that doesn't happen often, so... And of course there is one more case, and that is if you're flying long haul into an airport that has a night curfew. So if you are short of landing inside that night curfew, then of course you would have to reduce your speed in order to land a little bit later. And if you do that, cost index 0 is used quite a bit as well. For example, Sun Express, when they're coming to Frankfurt or Düsseldorf overnight, is often using cost index 0 in order to get the speed down to make the curfew. Nikolai, best plane to learn how to fly? To be honest, I would say it is less about the plane than more about the instructor. You can learn to fly on a Cessna 152 just as good as on a DA-20 or on a Piper 28. So I would say any plane that is forgiving in its handling characteristics, like the Piper 28 or the Cessna 150, 170 series, anything like that, really is just as good. Alright, there was one question further up asking me if I could explain the slots a little bit more. So, when we're talking about slots, then we have the commonly given CTOT. That's Charlie Tango Oscar Tango, calculated takeoff time. And that is what you usually get in Europe in summer. Well, and in winter. And at all times of the year, because our traffic control is generally understaffed. But that's another point. So, if a CTOT is given, then you have to take off in a time span from 5 minutes before the CTOT until 10 minutes behind it. Air traffic control will generally be aware of the average taxi times on their airports, so they are going to approve your startup and pushback in accordance with the time that makes it reasonable to take off within that calculated takeoff time. Now, if that's not a lot happening on the airport and we are ready anyway, then usually at my home base we would get a pushback 17 minutes prior to the calculated takeoff time for the runway where we have to taxi the longest. And then it takes about 10 minutes to taxi to the runway, so you line up and take off in order that your wheels leave the ground exactly at CTOT -5. So that helps then to keep the delay to a minimum if you have a slot. Now there are some other types of, well, commonly referred to slots, which is basically for airports that feature ACDM, so Airport Collaborative Decision Making. An ACDM basically means that each flight needs to have a target startup approval time, and that target startup approval time basically constantly has to be updated to reflect the actual time within which the aircraft wants to push within 5 minutes. So, for example, if you have a TSAT at, let's just pick a random number, 1740, then it means that you would get pushback between 1740 and 1745. And that's basically the whole idea. Now, of course, you have to be aware of the airport where you are. For example, if you're in Madrid, where you have 25 minutes taxi time, then if you get a CTOT that's like 40 minutes in the future, then you know that you can push in 10 minutes time. And that's basically the idea with slots. And of course, there is one more thing there. If you have a slot that's far in the future and you are basically ready for pushback, then you can call air traffic control and tell them that you are ready, and then they will send a so-called ready message, which basically tells the slot controllers from Eurocontrol in Brussels that this airplane is fully ready to go. So they see if another flight misses their slot and the slotting unit would be well reachable for you within the same slot, then you will get an improvement on your slot, and then you can go earlier than the originally planned slot time. So, to explain that a little bit more, for example, in Germany, the air traffic control units that are usually responsible for slot is the Rheinräder units, which are covering the area south of Frankfurt until the Swiss border. And if they are the restricting unit, then your slot would be allocated in order to reach the entry into that limiting unit at the time required. So, for example, if you have half an hour to fly to that unit, then your slot would be 30 minutes prior to the time where they want you to enter your sector. But if you now have another flight that is that would, for example, take 1 hour to reach that slotting sector, but he misses his slot, then it means that now there will be a free spot for you to enter that sector. And if you only need half an hour, then your slot is going to be updated so that you are going to be the one to reach that sector at that time. I hope that is kind of understandable. So, RealBlocks Gaming, are you colorblind? Can a colorblind person be a pilot? I answered that one short minute ago. But nonetheless, I am not colorblind, and somebody who is colorblind can, technically speaking, become a pilot, but probably not a professional pilot flying for money. But private pilot licenses can, depending on the country, probably be issued to somebody who is colorblind. But it really depends on the country. Then Slavek, how much time until top of descent? Well, it's 150 miles, so we are looking at round about 15 minutes. But that top of descent is probably going to come forward a little bit, so we'll have to see about it. Okay. Anyway, let's actually use that opportunity and start getting a little bit of our approach preparation done.
Control, buenas tardes. El Twin 324, nivel de vuelo 775.
Right, so just sent a quick message to the Palermo approach because we are running a little late. Officially the event ends in 21 minutes and it would be a pity if they would close down before we actually get there. So just sent him a message hoping that we would actually get some ATC coverage there. But we'll have to see what's gonna happen. Anyway, looking forward here, we can probably get some shortcuts on the approach. So if we take 432 and join that up with Exosi, what is that going to give us as a prediction? So 432 Exosi, basically like this straight in, gives us okay, so I'm going to change this to 6,300. Then we'll take 250 below 100. Forecast page. Let's actually get ourselves an ATIS for that. So, Palermo is currently reporting Punta Raisi, ATIS information Foxtrot at 1720. Type of approach RMP Zulu, runway 07. Departure 07 as well, transition level 60. So let's go for that. Wind touchdown 020 at 13, CAF OK 27 degrees, QNH 1016. Okay, 1016. And for the winds, we'll take them at 310, 200 and 100. Execute and request my winds. I'm too lazy to look them up. Runway news is 07, and we'll need a 10-mile ring and a 4-mile ring. And of course, we'll also need a 120-mile ring for 3 times the cruise altitude. Let's see if we can reach the Rome ATCs already. Roma, buongiorno, November H39 Bravo Alpha, flight level 400 inbound Adami. Capil to X-ray arrival for the RMP Zulu runway 07, November 839 Bravo Alpha. Okay, that's our winds. Then we're going to burn 0.9. Let's calculate 0.7, so giving us a landing weight 47.4. Flaps 30 for sure. Absolutely no reason to go 40 and act as an airway brake over here. Right. Now the big question, do we have a chart available? By the way, on the topic of charts, I decided not to use the Navigraph chart app again, because I did once again get some crashes to desktop with it. So I'm sorry for not showing the Navigraph charts on the screen over here. But actually what we can do, we can add them as an overlay. So give me a second for that.
Oscar 125, good afternoon. Checking out at level 36.
So here we are. Then we have a chart available over here, and we have the RMP Zulu approach for runway 07. Top of that, we also want our parking stands, of course. So, let's talk about the approach briefing then. Our threats for the arrival are QNH blunder error. QNH blunder error means that we will... a QNH blunder error means that since our vertical path is constructed from the aircraft FMC, which is based on the barometric altitude, we would get an incorrect vertical path if we had an incorrect QNH set. So, to mitigate for that, the pilot monitoring would have the QNH pre-selected from the meta that we had before the flight. Now that we've gotten the ATIS, we're going to compare the QNH from the ATIS with the pre-selected one and then determine if it actually makes any sense, if there is a difference. So something in the region of 1 or 2 hectopascals on a flight like this one can totally make sense. Nothing to worry about for that, but nonetheless we're still checking about it. But if I would enter, for example, 1006 or 1026, then we would get around about 300 feet deviation there. So that's our big threat for the arrival, and of course we have some very high terrain immediately to the south of the airport. We'll have a look at the chart again for that. So we can see it over here on our chart, going up to 3,000 feet, just about a mile or so to the south of the runway. So we want to be very careful with this. One more threat for the arrival is the spurious predictive wind shear activation. That's something that happens when the waves are plunging against the coastline and some water is actually spreading up into the air. And basically the weather radar is going to notice that you have the weather radar is going to notice that there are droplets of water in the air that are rapidly changing their direction. And that is basically what causes wind shear warning that is basically what causes a predictive wind shear warning. And this can happen here with high waves on the coastline, even though there are no actual wind shear conditions. So looking at today's weather report, we see wind 0 to 0 at 13 KVK conditions. So that is not conditions within which you would actually expect some real wind shear. So that means that if we get a predictive wind shear alert, like for example wind shear ahead, go around, wind shear ahead, then that is a predictive wind shear alert, and in today's weather conditions the captain has the authority to overrule that and to continue the approach nonetheless. However, if you get an actual wind shear alert, as in the two-tone siren, wind shear, that is an actual wind shear activation, and that in all cases requires you to carry out the wind shear escape maneuver. So these are the 3 big threats we have for our arrival today. Keeping that in mind, let's have a look at our FMC programming. We have 250 knots below flight level 100. The forecast is all entered. Our fixed rings are around runway 07, 10 miles and 4 miles. Then looking at our star. Over here we have the Kapil 2 X-ray arrival. That is on a chart 10-2 Echo from the 11th September 2020. To X-ray means Kapil between flight level 100 and flight level 190. Nope. Come on. Here we are, Kapil between 100 and 190, then 089 track for 20.2 miles to Charlie Juliet 441, maximum 230 knots. From there it's going to be 090, 10 miles to Charlie Juliet 432, maximum 230 between 5,000 and flight level 80. Now we've linked that up with Exosi, and that gave me 6,300 feet, so we've entered that in case we do get a shortcut over here. From there it's a left turn, 064, 5 miles, Charlie Juliet 433. And then, same track, another 5 miles to Vapek, maximum 210 knots. Then we turn right, 153, 6 miles, Ixupi, max 210. Right, 244, 5 miles, Charlie Juliet 437, max 210. Same track, 5 miles, inland Ixosi, max 210. From there we join the RMP Zulu approach, runway 07. That is on the chart 12-1, effective 30th of January. Final approach course 064. And it would actually be very useful if I had set that ahead of the briefing. So 064 and 064. We have our final approach fix, Charlie Juliet 511. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. With an MDA of 880, Now that is an LNAV only minima, so we'll actually have to use 920 feet as our actual minimum. In case you're wondering why, have a look at my non-precision approach tutorials where I went over this in detail. So, exosi at 5,000 feet is what the procedure says. And in here we have exosi at 5,000, then going on 154.9 miles BIPSO with a maximum speed of 185 knots and above 2,300 feet. Left turn 064, 3 miles to Charlie Juliet 511, that's at 2,300 feet, and then we're going down on a 3-degree glide path to Charlie Juliet 512. The minimum is at 8 feet right to 920 feet, which we have selected in here. And for this approach, from Charlie Juliet 512, we're going to make a left-hand turn to join the rail 337 outbound right VOR 13.0 in Mount Loop. And in here we have an intercept point to join 337 towards B. And we're climbing to an altitude of 3,000 feet, which we see as well. There is a speed restriction of max 185 knots, which we have in the FMC, but we can actually accelerate the airplane and clean it up completely. I'm going to put 113.0 in the radios here as well, so that we have the VOR as a backup. For the missed approach, MSA is 7,700, so that's fairly high. However, to the north of it, we are over the water, so I'm happy to stay at 3,000 over there. So for diversion towards Catania, we need 2.2 tons of fuel. We're arriving at 2.9. That gives us around about 700 kilos, and at this weight, that's easily 20 minutes that we have extra. We're putting 600 kilos. With a land weight of 47.2, and we're going to use flaps 30 for the landing, 119 knots plus 5. Let's quickly verify that with our performance tool. We are going Lima India Charlie Juliet. The runway is 07, missed approach 2.5, runway is dry. We are using 020 at 13, temperature 27, QNH 1016. Landing in flaps 30, line weight 47,200. Calculate. Alright, here we go. Flaps 30, auto brakes 3 is 1,800 meters and 12 minutes of brake cooling. Now, looking at this, we're landing on 0 to... yeah, that's a good question. Where are we parking with our business jet? I guess probably over here. No, probably over here. That's where I saw the business jets all the time, so 300s. So we'll vacate the runway on Bravo. November 839 Bravo Alpha, Capil to X-ray arrival for the RMP 07. When ready, descend to reach Capil at level 150. Okay, Capil 150 below. We'll put that in. That's something I love about flying in southern Italy. You get these great descent clearances of like 25,000 feet of altitude here, right from cruise level. That makes it relaxed to fly down there. Right. Anyway, we want to vacate on taxiway Bravo. So that is roundabout, if we measure it on the chart over here, that is like 1,400 meters. Now, if we are using auto brakes 3, it tells us 1,800, but that's factored with 15%. So if we take that times 0.85, we end up with around about 1,600 meters. We're going to overbrake that slightly at the end, and then we'll be able to make the taxiway. So auto brakes 3, flaps 30 it is. We've already talked about the taxis, so if you don't have any further questions, that will complete the approach briefing. Descent checklist then. Pressurization, land out 0, anti-ice off, approach briefing fuel discussed, IS and out box checked and set. Descent checklist complete.
34 Essex Civil 3 Charlie arrival, confirm some number.
Carlo 1501 reaching double. Carlo 1501,
Rattlesnake is asking, are there differences in the cockpits between the normal passenger variant and the cargo one? Actually, yes, the cargo one has the warning light for the main cargo door, and it has the cargo fire suppression system that is located down here on the pedestal. So the look of the pedestal changes quite a bit with the freighter. Slavek, can I turn up ATC a little bit more? I'm afraid not, because he is at maximum volume already. Then Ufran, do you think ATC will allow to go direct from 432 to Exosi? Probably. It will depend on the... it will depend very much on the amount of traffic they have when we arrive, but in real life we often get it. So then, what the wind shear escape maneuver look like? Okay, that's actually a fairly easy maneuver. Firewall the thrust lever, press toga, disconnect the auto throttle, and then rotate to a pitch of 15 degrees, and thereafter follow the flight director. Make sure the speed brake is stowed, and don't change the aircraft's configuration. So if you're in landing configuration, gear down flap 30, just keep it there. You're going to stay in that configuration until you're clear of wind shear. And when you're clear of wind shear, you'll go over into the normal go-around sequence, reduce your thrust, and that's basically it. Then Slavek, is the head-up display useful to me? Well, if I'm totally honest, I can perfectly fly the aircraft with the standard instruments, so is it useful to me? Well, it's a nice toy, I guess, but that's about it. Then Cabanas, what are my favorite airports? Well, Palermo most certainly is one of them. Exactly because of this approach of the RMP 07, and of course the circle to land for Romeo 02 is also really nice. But I never got to fly that one yet. But the RMP Zulu for Romeo 07 is a visually stunning approach, so I really like that one. Then anything in the Canaries, just because you can usually do your visual approaches down there. And because personally I'm a fan of those longer flights, so if you give me anything with a trip time 4 or 5 hours, perfectly happy with it. While many colleagues actually don't like them and rather do 4-sector day with shorter flights. Then, Palanino, where did I get my ATPL? You passed Swiss stage 1 but failed stage 2, not sure if you should risk it and sign into an academy. Well, I did it at a German flight school in Essen-Mülheim, and for you, personally, just because you failed a stage at one airline, that does not at all mean that you are not suited to be an airline pilot. So I would very much recommend you just to go and do it if you really want to. What you can do if you really want to, there is a company in Germany that offers a basic skill check, so to say, with the same basics that you would have to go through at an airline basic assessment. Do you speak German? Because I'm just about to search that one for you. It's German language only, or at least I think it is. So if you speak German, have a look at the link that I just put in here. Now, I'm not advising this to be a good thing, because I don't know if it is. I'm just telling you it's there, and it's something you should consider, where you can basically do the full basic qualification check that many airlines would do. Like, you see it on the side as well. Eurowings, Discover, Condor, DHL, they are all using this check as a basic check in their assessments. So if you're able to pass this, then most certainly go for the pilot training. So, Anglo Bank 25. So, Palomino, you live near Essen-Mülheim. Well, that's very good. If you live near Essen-Mülheim, definitely check out the FFL and the TFC flight schools. Both of them offer excellent pilot training. So go for that and try it. And no, I don't mean ATTC. I've seen a little of their stuff and didn't like it. So I mean the one that I put the link into in the comments. And Ufran, are there going to be more group flights? Yes, most certainly that's going to come in the future. However, I have 5 days of very busy flying ahead, so not in the next 5 days, and thereafter we'll have to see what I can come up with.
Contact the Palermo one. Want to deal with for the Palermo road, you make some money.
Kilometer 600, 6 is inbound, into.
Delta 038, now in command 68, Chapter.
From the water 125, ready for the Run to Oscar 125, ready, sir.
Oscar 125, descent flight level 150.
Down to level 150, run to Oscar 125.
Yeah, 1 kilo whiskey, Roma, Charlie, the contact, the direct Verona, descent flight level 370.
Kilometer 600, 6 is inbound, into.
006, Roger, clear the Cova 1, Quebec, arrival. Expect the VOR approach, runway 14.
Please cover from Quebec arrival, space for VOR for runway 14. Kilometer 600, 6.
Andrew, am I rated on any turboprop aircraft? No, I'm not. And Glenn, when shutting down the engines I say 2 blue, 1 red, engines dead. What light are these and what is their meaning? Okay, that is the 2 generator off bus lights of the engine. I'll quickly put that on. So this one and this one. And that indicates that the APU is on bus, or the ground power, as you will. And then the 1 red is the park and brake light, which basically assures us that the aircraft is securely standing. And if those 2 conditions are met, then we shut down the engines. It's very important in the 737 to check that it's actually showing the 2 blue lights, because we don't have automatic generator switching, and not having that automatic generator switching means that if the engine generators are still online and then you shut the engines down, then all of a sudden you are going to be without power. And if it's nighttime and the emergency lights go off while the cabin is going dark, I can tell you that significantly discomforts your passengers. Ufron, is there going to be a channel where we can send our simulator screenshots in my Discord? Well, there is going to be such a channel in a few moments. Stand by.
Bravo, Charlie Foxtrot, Mike. Your intention was to follow the coastline to the Charlie Palma, correct? BSY chart or the Charlie Juliet?
Okay, I want to go. Alright, the channel is ready.
No, I'm fine with either.
So, maintaining level 150, let's put that in as new cruise altitude. Ah. Yeah, the PMDG unfortunately doesn't feature that. In the real one, if you put the new cruise altitude in, it's just going to reassume cruise flight. Well, or, of course, with a 6.3 in here, we would have passed the top of descent, so it would continue the descent. So, my mistake, not PMDG's fault. But let's slow down a little bit.
Contact Palermo 120. 120, that's 120, Croatia, thank you. 839 Bravo Alpha, contact Palermo 120, that's
120.2, November 839 Bravo Alpha, bye bye.
The H1 descends level 70.
1070 under 1.
Rotate descent over.
Palermo Chow, November 839 Bravo Alpha, level 150 inbound Charlie Juliet 441.
The H39 Bravo Alpha,
descent flight level 100, November 839 Bravo Alpha.
584 descent.
We'll go vertical speed on this one, fasten loads on.
584, the exhaust cleared, RMP approach and 05. Sorry, correction 07.
And the speed breaks out. Let's see if we can get this down.
1123, tower 118, correction 119.05 shot.
Approach, Croatia S1, down Jano, flight level 150.
74% over radar 124.
And we're 3 to go. Basically what I just did here with the descent is an extension of the 321 rule into 54321 rule.
Yes, Jano 2 November arrival.
And we can stow the speed brakes.
120 from Croatia.
2000 to go.
And the 81 descending altitude 6 south, 52 connection with Roman Space. 584 to 204. And the 81 direct Charlie Juliet 437.
Charlie Juliet Charlie Juliet 437.
So there's the H39 Bravo Alpha descent to 6 south, 50 connection with Roman Space.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, descent altitude 6000 feet, QNH 1016. Okay, set 1016, passing 10,800, descending 6,000. With no flags, stand by altimeter set. And we'll go into level change. 1,300 higher, but we can make the 80 restriction at 432. And I have a feeling that we are not going to get the very shortest way, so we'll just leave it at this for now. Let's do the 10 checks, however. The fuel is balanced with 4 pumps on. Lights are at 25, air cannon press 3.8 descending and set. Fast modes on, recall checked, 21.5 is deselected. Capture 10 minutes to landing. November 3 Bravo Alpha, speed 230 knots. Okay, that's the 10 checks complete. I think I should have reduced to 230 knots on my own. Yeah, would have been a restriction at the last waypoint. Oopsie. But believe me, this kind of thing happens in real life as well.
Please confirm that this was Speed 254.
Speed 250 knots.
Speed 252. Okay, Speed 254.
Right, I'm gonna answer more questions after our landing here. But for now, let's get the airplane down. You can already see Palermo coming up over there. Basically, this is the bay over which we do the approach. We're coming in like this and make our turn to the final here. And the airport is located over here, just in front of that little rock over there. Speed 210 knots, November 839 Bravo Alpha.
Well, approach, good afternoon. Robin Water 125, checking piano, farm piano, running. It's Romeo Zulu Oscar 15. Romeo Zulu Oscar 15, Portuguese and Platform 3. And level 1 3 Romeo Zulu Oscar 15. Duration 3127 Platform.
Okay, we can do a frisk check already. Frequencies, we have 113.0 twice. Rings. Rings around Romeo 07, 10 miles, 4 miles. Idents, we have Papa Romeo Sierra for the VOR for the missed approach. Standby instruments are set and the course is 064. Approach checklist. Altimeters and instruments, cross-checked. Approach rates, checked and set. Approach checks complete, VSD on. Okay. Not sure where this guy is going, but I probably don't even want to know. You can fly it. What can I see here? There he is. No clue where that guy went. I guess I don't even want to know. November 839 Bravo Alpha direct Ixosi, and for your planning our final approach speed is 120. Okay, towards Ixosi. So that's pretty good. Let's see, a little bit high on profile. What happens if I change this? Speed 210. Okay, need to get down a little bit here. So let's use some speed brake. We have one to go. Oh well, in that case we can stow the speed brake again as well. And actually go to vertical speed. Should have thought along a little bit before extending the speed brake.
Hello. 789.
Probably Oscar 1 to 5 and bigger section first.
So this is a 125 speed 250. 250 knots for running.
Version entry 1 speed 257 knots, defense level 100.
250 knots.
Actually, what is VAT doing here? With a 5000 restriction at Ixosi, why does it want to be that low? That doesn't make any sense. Computers.
354 enable city traffic, finality 7 flight level 8.
Server 8, 0, 7,
Within 58407.
By the way, I have to say, I'm very surprised by the good audio quality of this controller. I mean, he doesn't sound very Italian, but most certainly, he is a lot easier to understand than the real Palermo approach is.
Bravo
November 9 at Bravo Alpha. Any chance further descent?
November 9 Bravo Alpha, 5,000 feet, cleared RMP approach 07.
5,000 feet, cleared RMP 07, November 9 Bravo Alpha.
Alright, 354, descent 6,000 feet.
So this is actually very good by the controller. By abbreviating my call sign to November 9 Bravo Alpha, and by keeping the other guy on the full call sign November 838 Bravo Alpha, it now basically is impossible to accidentally confuse our call signs. So that's something very good by this controller. Okay, we have passed Excelsior, so we can now descend 2,300 feet. Just set. A little bit high above the profile, now we need the speed brake. November 839 Bravo Alpha, speed 180 knots. Okay, flap 1. So drag required after BIPSO, it's checked.
For the aircraft is reconnected officially with EVK contact ground 12. We'll need the last 2135 speed 210. Speed 201, correct, 210 for run as well, 838 Bravo Alpha speed 230 knots, east passing 100.
Okay, I'll still the speed brake. Something's not quite correct with this VNAV path. We need to be at 2,300 here at Charlie Juliet 511. And not any earlier, so not sure why the VNAV is that low. But that's something I'm gonna file a report about after the landing, just to be sure that it's being taken care of. But VNAV is being worked on at the moment anyway, so no reason to be worried about anything there. Okay, here we go in VNAV path. Permitting 064. Approaching descent. 1,000 feet, VNAV path and speed at event.
5,000 feet for correction 31.
Alright, 354.
Terrain noted. Some high terrain down to the south over there, close to the airport, but we're well aware of that. November 839 Bravo Alpha established, run main side. Blocked. Okay, FAF 2,300 feet, no flags. Altitude checks, no flags. So based on 514, at 3.5 miles we're looking at 1,980 feet. With 3.5 on glide. We'll start speed reduction. Flap 5. Okay, set Mr. Approach altitude 3000. Set. And gear down, flap 15. Landing checklist. Start switches, continuous, recall, checked. Speed brake. And green light, landing gear down 3 green. Auto brake, 3 set, holding in flaps.
Bravo Alpha, descend altitude 5, hold pressure 75 feet,
Flaps 30. And complete the landing checklist.
354.
Flaps 30, 30, green light, holding at lights. Checked. Let me dim that head-up display a little.
Minimums.
Continue. For now. Still don't have landing clearance.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, 07 clear.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, Romeo 07, clear to land. Okay.
738, turn right in.
And the landing lights are on, landing checklist complete. 500, continue. So, recycle flight directors.
500.
Oops, wrong button.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yep, 5 by 5.
Romeo 0 up to 125, speed 187 knots. Speed 187 knots for Romeo 2 up to 15. Alpha Echo Alpha 738, turn right to the 160. Right to the 160. Number 838 Bravo Alpha, descend altitude 5, hold speed.
And Italo 354 confirms that we are clear to descend to final approach.
50, 40, 30, 20,
November 8,
10.
8.
Well, right on the marker. Speed pickup, thrust as normal, idle. 100 knots. 80 knots. 60 knots. Manual brakes. We'll just take the first exit here. He seems busy. So let's not occupy the runway longer than we need to.
November 838 Bravo Alpha, turn right to the 2.
Right, welcome to Palermo, guys. A little bit positive landing, but, you know, we've made it here.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, power pressure ground
121.625, November 839 Bravo Alpha, good job.
November 838, sorry, November 838.
Palermo Chow, November 839 Bravo Alpha, Romeo vacated in Alpha.
November 839 Bravo Alpha, Palermo, hello, taxi. Stand 101 via transit and Mike.
Stand 101, Charlie Mike, November 839 Bravo Alpha. Okay, so that's pretty much straight ahead into the apron, and then the last stand on the right hand side. Let's start the APU. I have to say, this was really great light on the approach with the sun that low. Right, and we are almost here. 102, one further. APU is available and on bus. And 101, here it is. We'll take the center stand. shut on engine 2. Okay, stop line on the left here. Go slightly over it, since the nose wheel is slightly behind us. And here we are. Brake set. Thank you very much for the great event, guys. See you next time.
Thanks for flying, bye-bye.
Just had to say that to the controllers. Okay, that's 20%. Anti-collision off. And the shutdown checklist, please. So, fuel pumps, 1 on, electrical, APU, fasten belts, off, wind weight off, probe lead, auto, NEOs off, electric hydraulic pumps, off, voice recorder, auto, air complex off, engine bleeds on, APU bleed. Alright guys, sorry for the microphone, it's fixed again. I really don't know what's causing that, but I have a feeling the headset is pretty much brand new, but I have a feeling I need to replace it anyway. Unfortunately, it's just out of the warranty. Oh well. Anyway. So, welcome to Palermo, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. And I'll take a little bit of time to answer some of your questions while we are unloading the passengers. Small hint, that's not going to take very long. Interesting. Are we deboarding right now? Yes, we are. Through the closed door. I don't want to know how they are doing that. I really don't want to know. Anyway. So, let's have a look. Since the microphone issue is sorted now, let's see some of the questions. So, MFS pilot, 40,000 feet is high for such a short flight. Actually, not at all, really. Basically, you want to have a cruise of at least 80 miles, 80. And if that is provided, you can go as high as you like. And Century Media, nice to see you here. Is toolbar pushback still pulling performance while in the 737? Honestly, I haven't tried it ever since, so I can't quite say that. Andrew, do I ever do general aviation flying in real life for fun? Yep, I do. And Rockspeed, where's the supporter channel on Discord? I think it has a couple issues right now linking it up, so I will try to sort those out, but I can't tell you at the moment when I can do that, because as said, I've got a couple of very busy days of flying ahead. But I'm going to sort that out, okay? Then, Charlie 972, what is the 0.7 Zulu near the waypoint ETA on the MFD? Basically, that is just the seconds, but in a 100 time format, so 0.9 is anything around 50 and a bit seconds. Vasil, what is the difference between VNAV speed and VNAV path? So, in VNAV path, the airplane is going to follow the predicted path that VNAV has calculated, while in VNAV speed, it's basically flying the speed commanded through either the MCP or the FMC, but it's not going to follow the path. However, it is going to conform to any speed restrictions that you have on it, as well as to any altitude restrictions. And Fantastic FN, did I ever consider becoming a military or fighter pilot? To be honest, there has been a time where the German Air Force has been recruiting pilots for the branch that flies the politicians in the German state aircraft. So you know our A350s and A340s, 319s and the Globals. And I considered that, but in the end I'm not a military guy, and personally I would never go into war, so I decided that the military is not for me. Cabanas, why do some pilots say the call sign first and others at the end? Well, both is allowed by the AIP. Now, if you are making a call to ATC where you want something from them, then I would recommend to start with your own call sign first. And the reason for that is so that ATC knows whom the request is coming from. If you are answering a call from ATC, I would recommend to answer the message first and then put your call sign second, because that makes it a bit easier to still keep that information in your short-term memory. However, different airlines have different policies as well. For example, Lufthansa usually wants their pilots to mention the call sign first all the time. And Charlie 972, so level change and VNAV speed almost the same, question mark. Yes. The only difference is that level change is going to disregard anything from the FMC, while VNAV speed is going to take into account altitude and speed restrictions. And Vasil, what about the flight to Moroni? If I'm totally honest with you, I haven't had the time yet, and there is still so much other stuff that I want to do. It is on my list, but I really can't promise you when I'm going to make that. Alright guys, so I'll keep it rather short with the question period today, because my alarm clock is going to sound at about 3 o'clock tomorrow morning, so it's really time for me to go to bed. So, thank you very much for joining everyone. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I'm sorry that I can't wait until the last one from our group flight has landed. Nonetheless, thank you very much for flying with me. Hope we can do this again in the future. Until then, have an excellent weekend, enjoy tomorrow, and have a successful week as well. I'm looking forward to see you all around. Until then, enjoy your flights, enjoy the new 737 up, and see you next